Beautiful people, welcome back. This is episode 80. We made it to 80.
80. Let's go.
And we have our second return guest. So I don't do a lot of return guests. And today's guest is somebody who a lot of people should know and is a former, not only a former guest, but also a fellow podcast host himself. The amazing Izzy Lugo, who is the host of Strange on Purpose podcast and does a million other things. He's recently featured in Footwear News. You got, I think it was like, I don't know, Hypebeast or Nike asked you to do what's in your closet or some shit like that. Like, it was crazy. Yeah. And so welcome back to the show. Izzy, how are you?
I appreciate you. Appreciate it. Really, really grateful to be jumping back on with you. I am great. It's Thursday night. I had an early dinner, so I think the rest of the night, I think I'm going to spoil myself and allow myself to jump on this podcast and then go play some video games after.
Let's go. As you should. And anybody listening, do something for yourself too. You know, while you're listening to this, make yourself some ice cream. I don't know. Do what you want. Video
games are the only things that turns off my brain, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because when I try to, like, you see the books behind me, I got a bunch over here and everything like that. Like, I'll sit down to read, but then when I sit down to read, I try to apply, my brain goes to, how do I apply that to what I'm doing right now? Versus, like, when I'm playing video games, I'm playing a first-person shooter or I'm playing Madden or anything like that. More than likely, there's nothing I'm taking out of a game of Madden and applying it to work. So, video games turn off my brain.
I love that and completely agree about the books, right? Like, my brain actually goes faster when I'm reading because I'm like digesting this amazing content and I'm like, it inspired so many other ideas that I got to like write down or whatever. So
exactly.
I definitely feel you on that. So for anybody actually, like, cause we talked about Izzy joining us for a second time now, episode 65. So actually not too many episodes ago. Okay. The reason why I wanted you back on was to talk about one specific subject matter, and that is change. This man has gone through so much change in his life over the past, I don't even know how long ago we recorded, probably 6 months ago, 9 months ago. It was not a long time ago. And yet you've dove in and just taken life by the horns and just keep going out of it. And I wanted to bring you on and talk about it. And like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Like you took a new job and like, again, because when we had you on previously, you were just hired for another job. So I want to talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm good. A lot's going on at all times in my life. I am definitely someone, as you mentioned, David, I'm not someone that stays somewhere too long, to be blatantly honest. I tell recruiters that, I tell HR people, I tell everybody, really. I like just kind of coming in, doing my thing, doing great work. And if I feel like I'm slowing things down or I feel like somebody else should be better suited in a role, I'll tell the team that, and move on and see what the heck's next for me. So, everything I think is good, really. Change is something that I adapt well with most of the time. The new role is something that I really haven't had much time to fully dive into before. So it's almost like a brand new chapter of my career. And if I have success here, who knows what the story writes for me after.
Yeah, 100%. So how does, if like you're looking at it from a very optimistic perspective and like, you're like, I like change. I like doing that. Like what is something you would tell people? Because everybody's like, oh, I need a job. Like, you know, a lot of people like stability and they don't like change. They fear it because it's very unknown. How are you able to kind of go with the flow and be like a feather, if you would?
Yeah. I'm going to say this from two perspectives. I'll say this from this very, very selfish perspective that most of us live in, and that's the money perspective, right? So when I talk about bouncing around and doing all these things, moving around to different companies and doing all this stuff, I guess a lot of people kind of look down on that. Really, they think like when you look at a resume, you're like, yo, why don't you stay for like in one place too much or too long? Are you a cancer to a team? Anything like that? And then they get to know me, and they're like, oh, you're not. So, and you do great work. So why don't you stay somewhere too long? And then I'm just upfront and obviously honest with them. But that at the same time, when we talk about the last time we had a conversation, David, like I'll be completely open and transparent with everybody on the show and anybody listening is last year I had three full-time roles throughout the duration of 2022. I bounced from a SaaS platform to a sneaker platform to now very much in tech. And in those three roles, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, my income went up 50%. And yeah, and just being able to honestly, like, like I said, to relate it back into the money perspective and the very selfish perspective, more than likely your team wants to retain you, but they cannot pay you enough to retain you in most circumstances. And at some point, I think it almost is more beneficial to a team for us to sit down and say, okay, here are my goals. This is what I want to do. And if it isn't here, that's completely fine, but I'll help you find that new person, or I'll actually help you to get to the next point where maybe you don't need a person in this role moving forward. So I think that's number one. Honestly, it's money. And then number two, I think truly the optimism and everything like that really comes from, I've really loved, going back to my like college career and doing internships. I had 7 different internships throughout college, and each internship was in a different department at a different sports organization or anything like that. So I got to take in a lot, right? I got to figure out like what I absolutely hated and what I absolutely loved. And now as the world changes, those roles are even like, there's even more popping up, right? So there's now AI roles that are out there. Yep. And there's now a very big Web3 roles and all these different things. And I'm too optimistic to not give myself the opportunity to try something new at most points of my life. Will I want stability over time or down the line in a different life or anything like that? Maybe. But I think I'm young enough right now where I can still bounce around, still bring very, very big value to teams, while also just like kind of in a sense being selfish and doing what I want to do.
Beautifully put, and 1000%. But there's an extraction here, right? It's like the more things you try, the more you're going to learn about yourself and what you actually like doing, not only doing in a job, but also like what you personally like doing, like what attracts you, right? Like you talked about going from SaaS to sneakers, which obviously is like our communal love. But even like that, like working in sneakers, you think is perfect, but okay, but maybe the role wasn't perfect for you, but you tried it. Okay, cool. Now I can learn from that, and then I can apply it to the next role. And so when you're able to do that, like, I think it's great because you're able to hone in long-term on what you actually love doing.
What's crazy about that as well, I agree 1000%. But being able to be on different teams, if you're in one spot for too long, you start to hear that echo chamber of, we only do things one way, we do it this way, and that's if you don't like it that way, you can leave. But even just being on 3-4 different teams last year, and then in addition to the freelance work and everything like that, I get to take things from these different teams and apply it to my roles. And I think that's where I bring the most value, is like on any given day. And I tell this to when I'm interviewing for roles or anything like that. It's like, I need that freelance position. I need like that freedom to do my own thing, because I 100% think that the things I'm doing outside of work is going to apply an even better Izzy during work. So I think when it comes down to like actually being able to take from different teams and everything like that SaaS platform I worked at a year ago from today has the best boss in the world that I've ever had. And like, I've been craving that type of culture. So when I went into the sneakers role and didn't really have that culture, I was like, okay, maybe I should start looking again. And now I'm looking for it here. And I'm just like, I found a culture that fit, right? So maybe it's time over time for me to actually start building a culture like that so that the next Izzy can come in and kind of feel a culture that they really, really feel safe in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, and culture is something that's very difficult to transform, right? People think a leader can even like create it themselves, but I think it's like it's the people around you, right? Like it's a communal energy. It's not one person being a sneakerhead isn't going to make everybody a sneakerhead, right? Like it's
right.
like it's a communal thing. But when you have the people around you to like, and you're like, something's here, like we can build culture, like that's really special.
Absolutely. It's honestly, it's very hard for most like big organizations to take on the culture, the types of company cultures that are on the startup level, like what we have the ability to kind of change and impact today, but then also just be able to like sit into a role and get to actually feel what a culture feels like with 6 members of the team or anything like that. Versus obviously sitting, it's almost like if you go back to college and you're trying to figure out what you want to do and trying to figure out what school you want to go to. And at some point, somebody asks you, would you be better off sitting in a room of 20 and a professor? Or would you be better off sitting in a lecture hall with hundreds of students and a professor? And some people are over here, right? Definitely on the lecture hall side. But I think a lot of us are in that small class type of setting. And that applies to a lot of the teams and organizations that we work in as well.
Yeah, totally. So like with this new role, right? And the just offline, you were talking about like a lot of the different capacities that you're involved in, and that's totally like startup culture, right? And like there's something really beautiful about it, but it also has the stressful sides of it to kind of counteract it. But like, how do you feel on a day to day? Like, are you pumped? Are you more stressed? Are you like thrilled? Are you excited for the future? Like, what are a couple key words that like pop into your brain?
Oh gosh, absolutely excited for the future. Very, very. I think focus more than anything. I think this is a role where I have put 100% of my brain on. And when I talk about turning it off, like it's necessary to turn it off, but it's very hard most of the time. I'll be sitting and watching. I deal a lot with creators in this role, and I'll be watching YouTube or anything like that. I'm like, oh, I should apply something like that into this or anything like that. And this is supposed to be like just me and my fiance time, and I'm like taking notes on the side or anything like that. So truly, I think that this is a role that has me inspired. It has me pumped to wake up in the morning. But at the same time, like it is stressful. It's a small company. We're wearing many different hats, and we have very, very, very aspirational goals. So obviously, we're working as a team to kind of hit those goals. But until then, those 2 other words definitely get me up in the morning and get me running.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's like rare. Like if you fractionalize the workforce in terms of like people who hate their job versus people who like go to their job, they don't really hate it, but they're not like pumped. Then you have like the people who like their job and they do it, you know, for whatever reason. And then you have the people who are fucking pumped to wake up every single day and are like, this is like something to work towards. It's like a vastly like skewed like percentage of like, I don't know, it's probably in the 0.0123% of people.
Absolutely. I'll let you know about something that only I think my fiance knows about, but like I took this role. I had a decision between 2 companies, and I took this role because I'd read something that said, "Do you want this role?" And if the question or the answer was yes, you move on to the next question. Does it scare you? If the answer was yes, you move on to the next question. And the third one was, do you believe you should, or do you believe you're going to fail? And if the answer was yes, they said you should take the job.
Wow.
And I read that. I was like, holy shit. I don't know how, I don't know if I should take the job because of that, but let me do some more digging. And after that digging, I was like, this is something, as alluded to before hitting record, this is something that is something, this role is something that I really haven't fully immersed myself in. I've immersed bits and pieces of the role and done it at a high capacity, but it still scared me. It's still like in the morning, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to fail. And it makes me work that much more because I'm addicted to success and I don't deal with failure in the best of ways. So when I sit down and actually I'm able to like actually just fully educate myself, hear and listen from a founding team that a couple members or one member sold the back end of iTunes to Steve Jobs. Like these are very, 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 very smart people surrounding me. And I just like want to sit back at some point and just like be a fly on the wall and kind of help this grow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. That was awesome and is 1000% making Instagram clips. So thank you for the alpha. That is inspirational. That is a lot of people would never do that. And I think that's why I love doing this podcast. Probably like why you like doing your podcast. Like you learn so much and like you never know who's going to listen to this and being like, this is the moment where I need to do something or I need to make a change in my life too, because there is so much light that can happen if you apply yourself. And that is awesome.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
I want to, we don't have to just talk about your new role. Cause I like the theme of, change and success. Like we're going to deep dive into the success part. You recently got interviewed, I think it was by Peter Very for Footwear News, and they wrote this really beautiful article about you. Footwear News is a very long-standing, magazine and publication that's very much respected by, I think, every footwear brand and maybe even not footwear people. But like, how cool was that moment? Yeah. When you're featured in a magazine like that about your podcast and about you as an individual.
Yeah. I couldn't thank Peter enough for that. Honestly, like that was not like a super emotional person. But definitely like woke up, saw that and was like, holy shit. Like that's awesome. I'm not someone that is doing the show to obviously get the features on Footwear News or Nike or anything like that. But when it does happen, I just feel like eternally grateful. And I used to be, in my previous episode, I talked a little bit about the startup that I built and it failed and all this stuff. And I used to be in that, like I say, that version of Izzy used to be obsessed with the magazine features or the 40 under 40s or all these different things. And it hits a little different when you're not obsessed with it and it comes out of the blue. And that one, that one hit me like a train that day. I was super, super grateful.
That's awesome. And yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, fuck, man, it's about like, to me, it's about time somebody paid attention to the cool shit that's happening like on the ground floor, right? Yeah. It's like, you're not doing this for fame or accolades or interviewing people, just like I'm not. Like, it's to have these amazing conversations, learn something, build these relationships, and just hopefully you inspire somebody to make a change. Right. And for somebody to recognize that, I think is amazing. And like, hats off to Peter for recognizing that. And you should be stoked, man. Like what you've built and what you've done is like, it does deserve that recognition. And I was like, fucking finally, like, that, like really
appreciate that. No, that was, honestly, like that was truly, truly, truly like probably the best moment of 22 for me. And the show specifically was that I was like, yeah, that one, it would be really hard to pass that one up.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What, so you talked about you used to strive for the 40 under 40s. So that's still like on my bucket list. I don't know about you. That is like, I'm like, I want to make that happen. I don't know why. Like, it's just like one of those, like, again, like fractionalizing the population, like that's like a wildly small percentage of humans that make that list.
Yeah, I feel it. For me, and it might just be the local area I'm in, but for me, I saw how much politics went into it. And it was truly not the list of the 40 dopest people under 40 doing great things and everything like that, but maybe it was 25 and the other 15 were bought. And that's when I was like, yuck. And I had grateful for it. I won the 25 under 25 and that was great. But for me, I was like I was at that time jacked, absolutely jacked. But now looking back on it, it's like, I don't want to be that person that just hangs an invisible tag on my chest that says I won 40 under 40. And that, again, this goes into the localized version. Is definitely different elsewhere, and I've heard that. But that's just, I feel like the dopest people in the world are some of the people that you don't even hear from. Yeah. And that's obviously like what you and I both strive to kind of cover on each of our shows. And that's when I started really interviewing these people on the show, I was like, damn. And then comparing like my guest list to like the list that I was reading of the 40 under 40, 50 under 50, 30 under 30. I was like, David's so much cooler than this guy, but why did they win? like that's honestly how I approach it. So that's why I kind of have that, in a sense, that negativity towards those awards locally.
I love that. Yeah, no, you're changing my perspective as we speak live on the air. So that's amazing. So are you striving for anything in 23 or 24 or 25? Like what's kind of dumping fuel on the fire right now?
Yeah, I am honestly dedicated towards investing in myself this year. And that can be taken in different ways. One, I was just at a men's wellness conference this past weekend, and we were just talking about vulnerability and stuff like that. And they asked me to come on stage and share my story. So it was interesting because I shared more about how important my fiance was to this journey than how important like my mindset was. And like she was 100% like part of that mindset, being positive, everything like that, when I was thousands and $1,000 in debt after that company shut down. But I think I'm very, very dedicated towards investing in myself and my relationships, whether that's with her or friends or contacts or anything like that. And no like massive plans in regards to Strange on Purpose. Honestly, just trying to, when I speak about dedicating time for myself, it's truly like, that's one of the reasons why I took this role. It's like, that's most of those areas are areas that I can get better at. So that's what 23 is about. It's about growth.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever reach a time where it won't be about growth or learning or doing something different?
You know, what's weird. I'm still in contact with a lot of, like, I'm on the board of my school, which is just north of here, and stuff like that. And still in contact with a lot of my teachers. And I was a terrible student. I never wanted to learn anything. And now it's just like addicting, right? So like, and like, I'm a history nut. So Erin's my fiance. She'll just get pissed because like she'll come into the living room and she's like, all right, what are we watching? And I'm watching a documentary about how like Romans took over all of Europe, or just like random stuff like that. And she's like, what are you doing? And she's just trying to watch, like, I don't know, Modern Family or just a random TV show. So I think it'll always be about learning. And I think it's because I waited so long to truly educate myself. But at the same time, I think at some point there is going to be a time where I just kind of want to slow down a little bit. Whether that's I'm always going to be a risk taker, but maybe taking more calculated of risk moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still see, you taking some risks over the next 10, 15, 20 years. I mean,
absolutely.
maybe later on, but I definitely love that. I want to also ask you about the latest feature that you got reached out to do. I think it was through Nike, right?
Yeah, it was Nike.
Okay, cool. I'm glad I didn't do that because, like I tell everybody every time I press record on this podcast, I do not do my research. So, but I'm glad I got that right just from browsing the Instagrams. So, one, how cool of an opportunity. Two, tell everybody about it and kind of how it came to fruition. Like, people are obviously always interested in, like, how do I get featured in this? And, like, I'm sure there's a million kids with, like, even cooler sneaker closets than you and I, right? Like, there's no question about it. So, like, people, like, how did it happen?
Yeah. I'm going to be blatantly honest. They reached out to me. It wasn't anything like me reaching out to anybody. There wasn't any hack or anything like that. But I think brands are starting to realize that ground floor that you spoke of before with Peter, and how important that ground floor is to the culture. Whether it's somebody with 100 followers that loves taking pictures of their shoes, or somebody with 10,000 followers that has a community of like-minded sneakerheads or anything like that that just love sneakers. And I think truly, I've worked with them all, the big YouTubers, everything like that. They're great. Most are great people. I almost said they're great people. Most of them are great people. But I think there's something to say about just truly, like, brands are starting to realize it. And if you go on, it's on the Sneakers app. It's just the What You Got. I gotta stop saying just. It's What You Got with Izzy Lugo. And I honestly just showed off my sneaker collection and, like, how much certain shoes really meant to me. And what you'll notice is, it's something that I put in my caption, is, like, I'm not a hype beast. I'm not just going to throw on a whole bunch of, like, Off-White sneakers or Louis Vuitton sneakers or anything like that, because, one, I don't have them. But then two, I 100%, like, I do have some quote unquote hype pairs, but I think that the story means so much more to me if I'm showing off the yellow toes that came out last year that meant more to me because of my mom and, like, stuff like that. So, yeah, I think truly, if anybody's looking to get on that, I would just say, like, don't go out of your way of just trying to beg someone for a feature or anything like that. Just keep doing you. People will notice, and keep having conversations and building relationships.
Definitely. That's awesome. One, so I'm cool. It's nice to hear that people are, like, getting found out, and obviously, like, you do go above and beyond, and you do a lot of things around the sneaker community. So, like, it's not like they're just picking like a random egg out of a chicken coop, but, like, but that's still amazing. And so I guess the takeaway here is just be true to yourself and
absolutely,
and do what you love to do. Izzy, I really want to talk about, you mentioned and I'm glad I didn't forget, you mentioned this wellness summit that you went on, and, like, how important your fiance was. How, like, obviously anybody's counterpart or, partner or whatever is truly important to them, but, like, what does she mean to you? And, like, if somebody doesn't have that, what could they do in order to counteract? Like, I'm sure you vent and you talk about certain things, and, like, What are some actionable things that people can do?
Yeah. So she means the world. Not to be all sappy and stuff. But I think the coolest thing and the best thing, one of the reasons why I knew quote unquote she was the one, was like she was just there. Like she's there to have those conversations. She's there to just be real. If she thinks that way isn't the right way or anything like that, she's open and honest with me, and not in a way of attacking one another either. It's just truly like, let's have a conversation about it. And if you do want to go and take that risk, don't just make that decision without me. Like, let's do it together. And like, I'm going to back you up no matter what. And that was huge. Like to be honest, before her, we've been together for 6 years. And before her, like I didn't really even have a relationship, like through college, high school, or anything like that. And I didn't know I needed it. Really, I was quote unquote, you could take this out if you want, but I joke around. I said Aaron met me when I was still a fuckboy, and ever since I don't think I am anymore. Ask her, but
No.
I think I think those are the things that she's really helped me with. But I mean, that said, I still have a therapist. Like I still talk to someone outside of Aaron. And I think that's one thing that I would recommend to anybody that just needs to talk. Really, I recommend therapy for a lot of men that just come to me for questions or anything like that. And you don't have to be quote unquote crazy to go to therapy. Like you can just be struggling with something, or you can be struggling with something that you don't even know about that you need to talk through. And that's something that I'll always recommend, no matter where you are in life. You could just hit the lottery and be high on life. But doesn't mean you can't talk to someone.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. That's awesome, Izzy. I'm like, I wanted to make it to 100 episodes before I brought people back, right? But then I had Brett Golliff on, so people should definitely go listen to that too, because it was awesome. I brought him back, and obviously I brought you. And it was really a spontaneous thing of like, I've been watching Izzy now for the past 6-9 months from afar, and like there's something happening, and there's these moments in time where they're stacking, and I'm like, he definitely has changed since we've spoken. And the past 30 minutes 1000% encompasses that. I think even the way like you're able to articulate and really be intentional about your message, like has come a long way.
Yeah.
And I think I'm so happy I reached out. Thank you for your time. Like,
I appreciate you.
I'm hyped, dude. This is super good. I do have a new closing tradition, which I don't think I did when
let's hear it.
You had it. While people are still here and alive, who's somebody or some multiple people that you want to give flowers to that's really like helped you recently, and it could be your partner again.
Yeah.
If you want to go that route, it totally could be. But who's somebody that you want to give a shout out to?
I could go Aaron, but I think that's a cop out.
Yeah,
and she gets her flowers quite a bit. I think I'm gonna combine two people. I'll just go my parents. They've helped me a lot. Really, in whether it's the last 6 to 9 months or just in life in general. Obviously, one of the things, I'm very, very hard-headed. Never want to take anything from my parents. They've given me the world to this point, right? And anytime they help me or try to help me or anything like that, I don't say no from a bad place. It's just truly like, I want to do this myself, and prove to myself that I can do it. I've seen so many people grow up and throughout their life rely on their grandparents or their parents and not essentially cut off from them. And I've seen that tax way off of those people, and I don't want to be that person for my parents. So I think the love definitely goes out to them today.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
definitely. I think that's like that, and it's also like I feel like becoming more rare where people don't have a good relationship with their parents.
Yeah,
and for whatever reason, and I think it's there's something seriously to be said about people who actually make an effort to continue that relationship. Like it's not just like the first 18 years of your life where you need that relationship.
right.
Now it's like 2x the age, and like they're in more need because they're older, and they and they need somebody to talk to, and you don't want to talk to them. So it's cool to hear that like you're making that effort towards them.
Absolutely.
Izzy, people know where to find you. It's, I think, Izzy Lugo everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's Izzy Lugo, absolutely everywhere.
And definitely, if you're interested in more podcasts, which are amazing, go listen to Strange on Purpose. If you've made it this far in this week's episode 80 of An Untold Narrative. Izzy, thanks so much, dude.
Appreciate you, David.